Good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of The People Show on intellectualradio.com, iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I'm Mark Wallace, your host and facilitator. We have got a full night of schedule for you tonight. We're going to have some great guests on with us. I'm going to have Dr. John Marshall Callahan on with us, talking with us about the latest developments, what has taken place. Of course, at the White House today, we have 7 of the European presidential leaders meeting with the President of the United States to talk about the invasion of Russia and onto Ukraine, and trying to come up with a process and a strategy to end that war. And so we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the program with our guest, who is going to join us to talk about that. Now, you all you've heard some of the crazy things that Donald Trump has said. He's gone to Alaska and he made all kinds of demands on and on and on about if there was not a ceasefire, that there would be extraordinary consequences, of which we haven't seen anything like that. He's also talked about today, made a joke, if some of you didn't see that, about canceling elections. Well, the president does not have the power or the authority to cancel elections. No one, not even the president of the United States, can cancel an election. Congress set forth the current date for presidential elections in 1845, and it has been held on this date for every 4 years, even though the Civil War and 2 world wars for over 175 years. Furthermore, the Constitution requires that the president's term end on January 20th. There are no exceptions that would allow the president to stay in office after that date unless the president is re-elected. We're going to be talking about some of those things, and I am going to provide with you facts about it. That's what this program is about. It's not, the sensational program. It is really to provide us with information so that we could all be better informed and understand how this geopolitical process works, to be engaged in the process, and the importance of why it is that we must be engaged, and based on the facts, based on the truth, and certainly on a process that we have, albeit not perfect, but is the process that we have, and we have to engage in that process to make it more perfect, and not to get engaged into, bluster or blunder, or someone who wants to talk tough, but then ends up being trounced or triumphed on. So we're going to be talking about all of that tonight. And of course, a little bit later on, we're going to be talking with Patrick Woodtor, who is the president and executive director of the African International House, USA. And he is going to be talking about the announcement of the continuation or the return of the 35th African Festival of the Arts. That's coming up a little bit later on in the program. And then we're going to talk about this shooting that took place earlier, about now a month and a half ago. This man shot this man, who is wheelchair bound and is a Navy veteran. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the program. Some astonishing developments in that, and I will give you all of the details about that. And we've got a report about that that coming up. So, and of course, Donald Trump and the Republicans attempt to get rid of mail-in voting. He is talking about getting rid of mail-in voting, and he said that we are one or the only country that does mail-in voting, and that is simply not the truth. There are other countries like the UK, Italy, Germany, Canada, and others that have mail-in ballots for elections. And in fact, this sitting president used a mail-in ballot in elections prior to this. And in fact, in the previous election, he used a mail-in ballot. So some of the things that you hear that are espoused by this president, most of which is not based in any facts or truth, but it is based in what they think that gets by, and trying to be a tough talking strong man. But this is what happens when several things happen when you people feel that they are disaffected, and people feel like the I guess the progressives or the liberals have not delivered. Then you open the door for what we are in the midst of now. And so now you heard me say the word feel. And you've also heard me say that feelings are not facts, and your thoughts are not the truth. Only the facts are the facts, and the truth is the truth. And we have to work and seek and research to get to the truth, not to be influenced by style and not to be influenced by rhetoric that is tingling to the ear. That is not what we should be engaged in. And we hear a lot of that today. We hear a lot of that today, and we've been hearing a lot of that in, unfortunately, the recent years. But I would say that do not allow for your emotions to lead you down the wrong path. Be informed about the truth of what is going on and get the truth so that you can make good, informed decisions. You have to engage the process if we're going to change the process. It's not a perfect process, but the only way that we make the process better is that all of us have to be engaged in the process. And you have to be engaged in the process and wanting to understand the facts and the truth. There is one set of facts, and then we have to start at the basis of there, and then we can determine on how we advance or change or make things better. It is, these are very peril times that we're in, but I believe that we can certainly turn things around, and we can certainly make things better. So we're going to be talking about a lot of that tonight. We're going to be talking about a lot of that tonight. We're also going to give you some information about the responsibility of the United States, the European Alliance, and NATO, what our responsibility and obligation is in this conflict that was caused by the invasion of Russia onto Ukraine. What is the United States' obligation? What is NATO's obligation? A lot of people ask that question because people don't really know. Well, there was a commitment made, and we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to give you the facts of what has taken place. Now, Russia today, and you can determine on who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. War is not good, but you can certainly determine who the bad guy is and who the good guy is. Here, Russia invaded Ukraine and is bombing residential communities. Ukraine is fighting back, but they're not bombing residential communities. They're hitting their infrastructure. They're not going after residential communities. Just today, Russia launched a bomb that killed an entire family, including a 15-year-old and a 1-year-old child and their entire family. So um, these are a whole grasp of things that are going on over there, and people are wondering, well, how does that impact us, and why do we have a responsibility to that? Well, we're going to get some expert information about that and some expert answers about that coming up in just about 5 minutes. We're going to be talking with my guest who is going to help us with that, and that's going to be Dr. John Marshall Callahan, who is an adjunct professor at the Institute of World Politics Graduate School. So he's going to be coming on and sharing with us about that. And then, of course, we are going to be talking with you about some activities that are coming up on the fun side a little bit later on in the program, something that you and I have participated on here in Chicago, that is returning, one of our festivals that has been sidelined for a couple of years, but it is returning this year, bigger and better. And we're going to be having the president and founder of that organization, which is the African International House, about the African Festival of the Arts, where they bring in people from all around the globe that have their arts and their crafts and events and culture for a 4-day event all over the Labor Day weekend. So get ready for that conversation. And intellectualradio.com is going to be broadcasting live from the African Festival of the Arts. So you get a chance to come out there and meet many of the hosts that are going to be participating. And of course, our executive producers and founders of intellectualradio.com, Earl Winfrey and Wanda B, are going to be out there. I had a chance to be with them on this previous weekend for the Bud Billiken Parade, which is the largest African-American back to school parade in the country. So we had a chance to be together out there on a couple of weeks ago, and it was a great day, great event. Hot, but a great day that we had. All right, so listen, we're going to get right into our conversation. Coming up, who is joining me now is going to be Dr. John Marshall Callahan. Dr. John Marshall Callahan is an adjunct professor at the Institute of World Politics since May of 2017. John Callahan has served as Director of International Relations and Homeland Security Programs at New England College. He was Dean of the School of Graduate and Professional Studies from September 2019 to August 2022, and he has taught at NEC since 2010. I welcome to the program Dr. John Callahan. Dr. Callahan, welcome to the program.
Hey, welcome. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you great.
Awesome. Great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very kindly. Lot going on. President goes over to Alaska and meets with Putin over there. Didn't get very good reviews from that. There was a lot of concerns about the look of that and how the United States was presented in that matter. Today was a meeting between the president and 7 of the European leaders, including Vladimir Zelensky, about trying to find a resolution to this war. We call it a war, but it was an invasion of aggression by Russia onto Ukraine. Help us to understand what is your view and what is the posture of the United States from what we saw in terms of the president going to Alaska to what we saw today?
So it's a hard one because I think that Alaska, I think the president's trying to get a win. He's trying to get peace. I mean, I take him at his word that he's trying to save lives and that sort of thing. But the bottom line is he promised during his campaign that he could end this thing in a couple of days. It obviously didn't happen. It's a significantly more complicated issue than he thought. But the president is trying pretty much anything he can to get this to stop. Um, so what we have going from Alaska to Washington, I think, is a pretty good thing in that the European leaders banded together with Zelensky for several reasons. One, to prevent a repeat of what happened 6 months ago when Zelensky was came alone to Washington, and had a very unfortunate interaction, to put it mildly, with J.D. Vance and the president. Um, but also, I think the European leaders have realized over the last 6 months how to deal with President Trump, and uh, play to his strengths. You come to Washington, let him be the conciliator, let him be the leader, let him um, be the guy laying things out and how things should be. Uh, what was promised? Not a lot. However, the big thing that could come out of today is a trilateral meeting involving Zelensky, Putin, and Trump. And one of the sidebars with Macron asked that it be quadrilateral, which I guess eventually will get the trapezoidal. I don't know, but he clearly wants a European representative at the table, which is a good idea. This is a European war, and Europe needs to be more a part of the solution. So apparently the president called Putin immediately after the meeting, and they're working on setting things up. Now that's according to social media posts by Rubio and Vance in the last several hours. So maybe something crazy is going to happen, and we're going to have a face-to-face with everybody in the next few weeks. We'll see what happens. It's kind of hard to believe, sir. You mentioned earlier the sort of indiscriminate attacks that the Russians make. One of the other targets they hit, I saw it today, was the university in a town called Sumy, which is right near the border. My wife taught there in the winter of 2019, before the pandemic and before she came to the States. And so I saw that. I'm like, oh my God, that's a direct, impact on my family. So I definitely feel it. I hope that answered the question somewhat. I definitely, please steer me, where you'd like me to go with your
Yeah,
question.
I think for the public that is that we need to understand, and one of my objectives is always trying to educate the public more informed so that we
Hmm.
can understand what this means in the grander scheme of the geopolitical landscape. Uh, this is not some people look at Trump and say, well, he's a businessman. Well,
Hmm.
governing is a very different thing than trying
Sure.
to consummate a deal on some business and trying to get conflicts like we have happening right now
Hmm.
resolved. And it takes a lot of work, and it takes a
Yep.
lot of people who understand this process. And we have a president who does not have a whole lot of respect for those systems and those processes, but that we still have to try to navigate through.
Sure.
Um, so, um, but what are your thoughts? Because I thought that the meeting that took place today, and I thought that the European leaders did a masterful job
Hmm.
at cajoling Donald and playing to the things that makes him feel good, while at the same time saying what is important is to getting to a ceasefire and getting
Right.
Russia to basically come to the table. And what I heard in through some of them is that Russia needs to be stopped
Hmm.
from its aggression. So I think that they were able to communicate that, and to keep Trump out of what his usual blunder and bluster is when he, in my view, is intimidated by people who understand his process, and his lack of understanding, then he goes to the strongman type tactic. But I think that they were able to keep that at bay today. The other thing that I saw was maybe it would be a great opportunity to have, more than a tri-level meeting with Putin. I would think that some of the other European leaders would be included in that same meeting uh, to really get an understanding of where Putin is going to go. Do you have any confidence that Putin is going to um, negotiate to leave, or is he going to make demands that just are simply not going to be acceptable?
Sir, I see where you're going, and I think the evidence of the last 6 months to a year makes me believe this is more just talk, and that on one hand the Russians will nod, but on the other they will give demands that are so ridiculous that they're non-starters. That has been the history, and until it's proven to be wrong, that's what I think is going to happen. Now, it's possible that Putin could trap himself by going along with this stuff. With this, when he gets to the point where he's in the room with everybody, um, if he blatantly lies there in the room with everyone, then that is a loss for him. Um, so I don't know. Maybe the key is to get everybody together on it. But the past shows us that he can't be trusted. Everything that he says is basically a lie, a self-serving lie. And I think an important factor too is I appreciate what you're saying about the goal of educating your listeners and the American people so they can make sound decisions. Uh, Flip that around, and a great deal of Putin's communication is not even meant for us. It's meant for his personal internal audience. Because Putin is a guy who is fighting for his life. If this goes poorly, Putin dies. If you remember back to the end of the Cold War, when guys like Ceausescu and his wife were like shot out back behind the Parliament building, that is what is going to happen to Putin if this goes poorly. And so he has such a vested interest in keeping this war going at this point. I just, I, I don't see how, unless they trap him, like I said, I don't see how he it can be telling the truth and can let this go into peace. It's really hard for me.
Yeah. Well, the United States has an obligation, and I think, listen, uh, none of us like war.
Right.
All of us wish that it didn't this didn't happen, but we are here, and we have to find ways to go through it. But the United States made an agreement
Yep.
with Ukraine in 1991 to give up your nuclear armor, which they turned over to Russia. And
Yep.
in exchange, they signed a deal that security measures would be put into place and the United States would be there to protect them against any
Hmm.
aggression. That was the deal. And so the United States uh, seems to be walking away from that. And I haven't heard a whole lot about that being even from the press of pressing the administration to say, well, what about the agreement the United States made to support Ukraine if it gave up its nuclear armor?
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely true. And we're now, I mean, if you count Trump as two separate presidents, we're now in the fifth administration that has had to deal with a revanchist Russia trying to get its own back. The Bush administration got caught flat-footed in Georgia back in 2008, and then the Obama administration got caught by Crimea and the original Donbass, and then the Biden administration and now Trump. I mean, and I'm not. This isn't buck passing or anything like that. Um,
Sure.
but I think after the end of the Cold War, and especially in the 90s, we were so desperate, having won the Cold War, to move on and just get away from the Russia issue, that it has been a huge blind spot for us. And so then these things happen. It's like, well, oh my God, we're committed everywhere else. We want to pivot to Asia, but oh no, we have to worry about Crimea, or are things like that. And I think we've just been really bad at Russia for since 1990 in some ways. And so these things keep happening. And yeah, we need the reminders. The historical rhetoric emphasizing that is something that we're very much not good at. And the Russians are very, very good at it. And I'm going back now even further than 91 to like 1945, where the,
Hmm.
the, the Russians tell the world that they won the Second World War and that it was, just them and everybody else was a sideshow. And that's not a great debate to get into because millions of people died, et cetera. But, we don't talk about our contribution to that because we moved on. We have short memory spans, but the rest of the world doesn't. And when you hear that, Russia saved the world and Russia did everything, and then flip it around, well, we've forgotten about this guarantee from 30 years ago, but nobody else did, and it's just discrediting that we never backed it up. I would also argue that on the nuclear weapons front, I'm very much against war. Absolutely, I was a Cold War kid. I'm sure that you were too, and
Hmm.
and remember growing up, not quite hiding under chairs, but I live in Hampton Roads, Virginia, where all the Navy and Air Force and Army is, like probably target number 2 in the country, and I remember growing up under that. And the last thing I would ever want is a nuclear conflict. But I also think that allowing Russia to rattle the nuclear saber and hide behind it is a path to just terror. Because it'll encourage every other country on earth to get nuclear weapons. It will hasten the day when they're used again, and so all this needs to be brought to a stop. And as the Europeans pointed out today, history shows us that Putin won't stop. He has to be stopped. So then how do you balance all that, and how do you stop him without creating that situation where he feels he has no choice but to go the nuclear route? I mean, this is the dilemma, but I think that the alliance standing together, fulfilling obligations, is definitely a path toward success.
When talking about the nuclear threat, is it in your view that um, Putin, if his back was uh, pushed to the wall, that he would really uh, go to the nuclear threat? I mean, that wouldn't work well for him.
Well, right, right. This is a terrible thing to even discuss because these weapons are so damaging and horrifying. But the calculus isn't really quite what it was in the 1970s and 80s. It's not even. Capabilities are not the same. And yeah, if this is a route, this is the destruction of Russia for sure. It's
Hmm.
also a lot of destruction for us, but we could be sure that that's the end of that, right?
Hmm.
So this is really, sometimes it's really hard to get into the other guy's head because as an American, I cannot conceive of a situation where we would use those weapons unless they were used on us first.
Hmm.
I I do think that if he were left with no alternative, that he would probably do it. Now, does that mean insert all the keys and fire 1,000 missiles off and go that way? No, I don't really think that. But I pushing to a point where some sort of demonstration or one gets used somewhere in Ukraine. I mean, I don't think that's. I think it's very, very unlikely, but not completely beyond the realm of possible. I hate to hedge the bet like that. It's just so
Sure.
difficult.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated, but I guess I wanted to hear from somebody who actually certainly has a lot more understanding of this than I do. Um, but in my thought was that calculating um, the the risk of this, right, is that
Mhm.
it's almost like I will get blown to smithereens, but I'm going to take a bunch of other people out,
Right, right, right.
with me is essentially what that would happen. So there would be a certainly a lot of damage, you know,
Yep.
on our side and the European side. But as you say, he would completely be destroyed. He strikes me as someone, and I picked this up through COVID, that this guy is afraid of getting a cold,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
and just by the way that he isolated himself from his own cabinet during
Hmm.
COVID, right? He's certainly isolated to some degree in the country, but certainly during that time he isolated. So I said, this guy is afraid of getting a cold.
Yep.
Certainly, he doesn't want to, die. And as you say, that if this goes poorly, it's over with him. But he
Yep.
certainly is getting a cold. That this doesn't strike me as somebody who would actually launch a nuclear weapon knowing that he is going to be destroyed. Now,
Yep.
as you said, that if this goes poorly, he's done.
Hmm.
So, so would that be thrown into his calculus that if I'm going to be done, and I'm not going to get the Soviet Union that I aggrieved that was
Yeah.
um, broken up before, um, is he more likely to say, "Okay, the hell with it. I'm just going to, you know, I know I'm going to go. I'm going to take a whole bunch of other people out."
Right. Right. Yeah. That's the question.
So now, with that extreme, and from that extreme, would it not be, barring the United States made an agreement with Russia and Ukraine, but would it not be in the interest of the entire world for the United States to say to Russia that if you are not going to back off of this, we have no other choice but to fully enforce and support Ukraine to stop you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I
why wouldn't the president of the United States take that role and show some real leadership?
It's a good question, and I don't know because if you want to be really cynical about it, the opportunities for the arms industry, that there's there are a lot of reasons to do it beyond just moral ones. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I I'm I don't know. I don't know what's in Trump's mind about this. I used to I used to think that President Biden was too worried about the nuclear side, but that fits with his age, and he grew up in the Cold War at the height of it. The reasons for the thinking made sense, and then now you're Trump, the businessman. Um, it may be that he just cannot get in the headspace of war. I, maybe I'm not sure. What something that goes along with this that I think is a good thing. The Europeans, the main European leaders came along and they were part of the dialogue today. And President Trump has actually come a pretty long way in the last 6 months on NATO and on Europe. There was a really big fear amongst a lot of folks dealing with Europe that we were going to pull out of NATO about 3 months ago. That we were just going to
Hmm.
say, yeah, we're done. The NATO the last NATO commander. So the NATO commander is always American. It's part of the alliance deal, and he retired. General Cavoli, and uh, there was a lot of worry that we were just not going to nominate a replacement, and we're just going to say we're done. But Trump turned around. I think Trump got a realization that Putin didn't want to negotiate, and Trump went to the NATO summit and seems to have re-examined his views on Europe in a positive way. One of the guys that was there today, uh, Chancellor Friedrich Merz from Germany, he had a very good visit with Trump in June and
Hmm.
began to build a positive image. But what's all this about? Well, this goes back to Trump's first term of America being taken advantage of by Europe. and it's a little bit unfair because there were reasons why we ran NATO that go back to the 40s and 50s when we were the only ones who had any money and the only ones who had any power. So of course we ran it. We were the credible force in NATO. Um, but there's legitimate concerns now about the Europeans pulling their own weight, especially Germany. But Germany has pledged to spend 5% of their GDP on military and civil defense issues. They've pledged to become the most capable military in Europe by 2031, which is a huge task. Whether they make it or not, I don't know, but they've pledged it. So this scratches Trump's itch of Europe stepping up in a positive way, and it's also better for us. I mean, we spend an awful lot of money on our defense capability, and we provide that to our allies and into the world, even our enemies. We provide security free of charge. I mean, who maintains freedom of navigation? Well, it's not the Chinese, it's us, and but so getting our allies to carry more and more of the burden is good for the American taxpayer. It's good for our capability. It's good for us. Do you want to do that by just trashing everything? That's a different question, but the Europe showing up today and expressing support and proposing ideas, I think was really really positive.
Well, I guess we will certainly see what comes out of this. Now, the call that supposedly was made to Putin today, that Trump made. I'm not sure if he actually had a call because it was the middle of the night over in Russia, I believe it is. So I'm not sure how much of a conversation that he had. But do you have any sense of what the purpose of that call was?
Well, he said in the meeting that as soon as it was over, it was over. He would contact Putin and well, I don't want to say check in with him, but touch base and see about getting the next meeting going. I mean, that's what I thought it was. It was like, okay, we're all on the same sheet of music or some kind of music. Let's do the meeting. So that's how I read it. But the Kremlin has already de- sort of said that one of the discussion points about having a NATO-like defense agreement with Ukraine is a non-starter for them. So that was like the snap reaction. So I don't know where that goes. I assume that it will go to the meeting and see what happens. But the Russians are already doing what they do, which is sort of put out the outlandish, unmeetable targets as a way to avoid doing what they don't want to do.
Yeah, I think that the whole idea, or certainly the meeting that he rolled out the red carpet with in Alaska, certainly did not make the United States look like it was strong. When I saw Donald Trump come out uh, to do their press conference, he just the look on his face to me looked like he was completely defeated in whatever the
Mhm.
conversation that he had behind closed doors with um, with Putin. I, you know, I don't like to speculate into wild um, conspiracy theories and that sort of thing. But I do wonder what is the influence that Putin has on Donald Trump.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I absolutely see what you mean. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, very complicated. Well, listen, I want to thank you
Absolutely.
very much for
Yeah,
coming on and helping us with this, and certainly would like to ask you to come back because I'm sure that this there's going to
sure.
be more developments in this and helping us to understand through this process, at least trying to navigate through it. It's complicated, and you're right to say whether I agree or disagree with Donald Trump. There are some things that he has moved off of
Mhm.
that certainly somebody has been able to convince somebody has been able to convince him not to eliminate some very important strategic relationships that we need, certainly in terms of our relationships around the world.
Mhm.
And so we'll see how that what is it how that works out.
Absolutely. I'm happy to help.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. We certainly appreciate it, and we'll be talking with you again soon.
Great. Thank you. Look
All
forward
right.
to
Take
it.
care. All right. Good night. Yeah. So, folks, um, war is complicated. War is complicated. These conflicts are complicated. No matter what your thoughts are about Donald Trump, I'm not a supporter of Trump. What I am is a supporter of the United States, and I want for us to certainly protect our people here, and certainly to protect interests around the world, because we have people in the military and military bases all around the world, and we want those men and women protected. And what we don't want, as much as we possibly can avoid, is to have our men and women engaged in another war where we are losing people. I remember when we first started this program, now going back, I guess it's about 3 years ago, and my former co-host was on with me, and we were having this conversation. And one of the things that he reiterated, which a lot of people reiterate, is what and why should we care about Ukraine? Well, caring about Ukraine, number one, if we are the United States of America and we consider ourselves to be uh, the superpower, and we are the richest country in the world, and of course we have our problems. That without questions, the United States have its problems. And as a black man sitting here, of course, we are very critical to much of the history and a lot of the history of the United States. That being said, in 1991, there was something that was signed called the Budapest Memorandum. And in 1994, the United States agreed to provide security guarantees that if Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons, which they did, and turned those nuclear weapons over to Russia, there was an agreement that by then Boris Yeltsin and Bill Clinton, that the United States would provide security guarantees to Ukraine that if there was any aggression, that they would provide the support. That's one of the issues that I had with President Biden and not providing resources sooner and more aggressively to Ukraine to stop Russia from advancing. I believe that that was a mistake. Understanding, you know, his his calculus of that, but I think that there should have been more force in supporting Ukraine with um, with aid for them to defend themselves and to stop Russia, so that we would not have to, one, would keep our commitment, and two, that we would not have to put our men and women at risk by putting boots on the ground. Because if Russia is successful, understand this. This is one of the reasons why it is important for all of us to understand. Number one, we have to keep our agreements and keep our commitments. So you basically have said to somebody, unarm yourself, disarm yourself. And if you disarm and someone comes to attack you, we are going to be there. We got your back. That's what the United States said to Ukraine. Give up your weapons and give them to Russia. Turn them over to Russia. If Russia shows any aggression, we have got your back. Well, you have people who are saying, making it political, not against Ukraine, but making it political because of what we see practice and what we see happening with this whole MAGA group and people who just don't understand the geopolitical landscape and why this is important. Because we made an agreement, is the bottom line. You made an agreement, give up your military nuclear arms, and we will be there if you endure any type of aggression. We will be there to support you. Well, the United States of America cannot walk away from that. And I don't know why the media is not hammering the United States and not, or this administration, about the Budapest memorandum that they signed to protect and defend Ukraine. Now, not going to war with Ukraine, but providing Ukraine with the assistance so that Ukraine can defend itself. I would rather spend a few more dollars in tax wise in sending Ukraine the resources that it needs to defend itself without having to send our men and women over there to be boots on the ground. And Ukraine is, they weren't even asking that. They were just asking, please provide us with what you promised. We gave up our ability in a large sense to defend ourselves. We gave it up because you promised that if we gave it up, that you were going to be there. That is the responsibility that we have to Ukraine. That, second to none, is why we have to support Ukraine. And we have to put pressure on this administration to provide them with the military resources. And believe me, we've only sent about $38 billion, of which we are getting back. Most of that money that was spent here because people got jobs. We have people who are building the equipment here, sending it over to Ukraine. So most of that economics was spent right here in this country. We didn't just put $38 billion on a pallet and send it over to Ukraine. So most of that was incurred here. But we need to keep up, and we have to keep our agreement that we said. I want to play a clip. I want to play a clip of which I was going to play a little bit earlier, but here is Donald Trump talking about this swapping of territory. Now, remember, he started talking about that swapping of territory after he had a conversation with Putin, talking about there was going to have to be some sort of swapping of land. This whole thing, and I still have this question in my mind as to what is it and how is it that this tiny little man in this tiny little country could have that much influence on Donald Trump? What is it that he seems to be conceited? Is it because the two of them think alike? Is that because they think alike? Are they much alike? Well, in some respects, I would opinionate that Donald Trump is as evil as Putin is. And I think that if the tides would turn, I don't know it. Now, there was something that he said today that he used as a joke when there was a question that was raised to President Zelensky that if he believed in democratic elections, and of course he said yes, and why they don't have a democratic election, because the law is when they are at war, they cannot have elections. Well, that does not apply in the United States of America. Our Constitution calls for that if we are engaged in a war, that elections go forward. And so the president does not have the legal authority whatsoever to stop elections from going forward, even though he alluded to that. He said that in 3.5 years, if we're at war, there would be no elections. Now, don't dismiss that he said that. And now there were those who would say that he said it in a joking way. Nothing Donald Trump says you can take for granted. Nothing that he says in terms of as a joke, because he has said before that he should serve out a third term. And then there are people who were putting forth stupid measures that weren't going anywhere to suggest that he should get a third term because of their ignorance of the letter of the Constitution saying that no president can serve more than 2 terms. Doesn't mean that they have to be consecutive terms. That's the ignorance that they try to manipulate on the Constitution, but the Constitution is doesn't support that at all. But you can rest assured that that is where we are. Now, I want to turn to a story that we're going to talk about. Well, I'm going to save that story because we don't have that much time, and we do need more time to talk about it. But I'm going to play. I want you to see that this man right here, this individual right here is someone who shot a 68-year-old veteran, 32-year-old Gregory William Tim confronted Harold James Powell. This is Gregory William Tim here. And this 32-year-old, and you can see in the background, is holding what appears to be some type of Glock that he shot this man, who is Harold James Powell, who is wheelchair bound. Shot him in this scene that unfolded on July the 31st in Seattle, near a Starbucks out in kind of a outdoor sitting area, where 32-year-old Gregory William Tim confronted Harold James Powell, a 68-year-old Black Navy veteran, in a wheelchair. Tim accused Powell of, quote, stolen valor, and demanded to see his military ID, and then ripped a patch off of the wheelchair. Now, there was a story that was done about this, and I'm going to play this story, and then we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the program. I'm going to show you the video, which is very hard to take, but we're going to talk about this a little bit later on. I want you to reach out to all of your social media friends, tell them to come on the program to take a look at this, because we have to talk about this, because now this is my opinion. this is my opinion, that there has been a sanctioning of this type of behavior. Now, not that this behavior is new, but there certainly has been a sanctioning of this behavior coming from the thug and thief, the President of the United States, that people are emboldened who had these thoughts already. They had them long before Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has emboldened people to believe that they can carry out these actions. And here this man is a 68-year-old wheelchair-bound Navy veteran, and who in broad daylight, this 32-year-old decided that he was going to execute someone. Now, we know that this is not new to Black people in this country. But what I am saying is that it has been put on a escalated, elevated, okay for you to act out this type of an aggression, because the consequences will not be severe if you are acting them out on certain people. We've seen this again. We saw this with the Trayvon Martin. We saw it here with Laquan McDonald. We saw it in with Dylan Ruth down in South Carolina. We saw it in Wisconsin. So this kind of behavior has been persisting and seeming to be more people more willing to do this because they feel like the person who holds their views or shares their views is now at the top of the food chain. Those people who support the current administration and the person who is at the top of the food chain, the person who is the President of the United States, who outwardly, with the lights on, expresses what many of his followers, many of which who have never participated in elections, or certainly hadn't participated in elections in a long time. I think that there was a poll that was taken about 30% of the people, some 30% of the people who supported Donald Trump had never participated in elections in more than 15 or 20 years. Some had never participated in elections. And so they've come out of their hiding places because they have a person who shares their ideology about how things should exist in this country. And they are loyal to that at all costs, regardless of what it does, even if it goes against their own interest. They still support this. So there is a sect of people who have not participated, never participated at all, but they have somebody there that represents what they believe. And somebody who they believe in their mind actually cares about them, although he doesn't care about them, because we clearly have seen that there is a minority that they only care about, and that is that 1% that is in the billionaire group. They don't care about working class white folks. They don't care about poor white folks. They just care about manipulating them to use them to be able to have the power to exact what they want to exact for their people. This is the ignorance of a lot of people. This was the ignorance of 39% of a Latino man. This is the ignorance of 53% of white women who said that this, what we have right now, is better than what we had before. This uninformed, misinformed decision. That's why, again, I say to you that get informed with accurate, factual information, not some barstool conversation or some rhetoric that somebody saw on TikTok or YouTube about, some story that they saw without doing research. So let me help you there. When you see something on TikTok, you see something on YouTube or Facebook or any of these social media outlets, before you go re-espousing it, verify with 3 of the main sources, 3 of the main news media outlets. That's all you have to do. Verify with 3 of the main media outlets. If you don't see that story being reported by 3 of the main media outlets, you can go to ABC, NBC, CBS, Reuters, Politico. If you don't see it, Washington Post, the New York Times, if you don't see it in any of the main outlets, or at least 3 of the main outlets, it did not happen. That's journalism 101. It did not happen. So stop repeating stuff that you see somebody making some video up on TikTok or YouTube, because it just didn't happen. But coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to take a look at that. We also certainly want to congratulate those people from Texas who was here in Chicago for over 2 weeks, demonstrating and protesting against the gerrymandering of redistricting in Texas. And what it did was certainly put it on the map. Most people didn't even care about gerrymandering. And when you say gerrymandering, most people don't even know what that means, except for more people are informed about what it means today. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing. And so there are other states that are taking the lead on this. Gavin Newsom in California, which is a community or a state that has the population of 23 states. And here's Gavin Newsom taking the actions that they took the other day, and we need to see more of them taking. Take a look at Gavin Newsom.
We're here because Donald Trump, on January 6th, tried to light democracy on fire, tried to wreck this country, tried to steal an election, as Alex just said, by trying to dial in for 11, almost 12,000 votes. And here we are, an open in plain sight before one vote is cast in the 2026 midterm election. And here he is once again trying to rig the system. He doesn't play by a different set of rules. He doesn't believe in the rules.
So Gavin Newsom had a big press conference. And of course, outside of that press conference, there just happened to be a bunch of ICE agents who Pam Bondi came out later and said that they made an arrest right outside of the press conference. Was that coincidental? I don't know if it was coincidental or not, but this is what Gavin Newsom said that they're doing in the state of California.
And as a consequence, we need to disabuse ourselves of the way things have been done. It's not good enough to just hold hands, have a candlelight vigil, and talk about the way the world should be. We have got to recognize the cards that have been dealt. And we have got to meet fire with fire. And we've got to be held to a higher level of accountability. So that's what this is about. It's not complicated. We're doing this in reaction to a president of the United States that called a sitting governor of the state of Texas and said, find me 5 seats. We're doing it in reaction to that act. We're doing it mindful of our higher angels and better angels. We're doing it mindful that we want to model better behavior, as we've been doing for 15 years in the state of California with our independent redistricting commission. But we cannot unilaterally disarm. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear district by district all across this country, not just in Texas, but in Missouri, where J.D. Vance went just a week ago, in Indiana, in places like Ohio, in places like Florida. We need to stand up, not just California. Other blue states need to stand up. We need to be firm in our resolve.
And he went on to talk about exactly what it is that California.
So we're here in that light. And I'm grateful to have remarkable partners in the legislature. We need to be firm in our resolve. We need to put back. So we're here in that light. And I'm grateful to have remarkable partners in the legislature. It's a tall task. We're asking them for 2/3 of a legislative consent, but this is the difference. This is the difference between what's happening in Texas and what's happening here in California. We didn't receive a phone call from the President of the United States to then quietly go in the back room and start drawing maps and legislatively try to jam them through against the consent of the people. We're doing precisely the opposite. We're working through a very transparent, temporary, and public process.
All right. So what they're doing in California is in reaction and in response to what they're doing in Texas. So if Texas is going to go and pass this map, which it looks like that's what they're going to do, that the governor has already called the special session that they're going to be in, and then they will pass that map, and they will essentially steal 5 more seats in Texas. And if that is the case, the Democrats have stood up and said that we are going to fight fire with fire, and that's what we are going to have to do. There is no negotiating with this regime that is in place. There is no negotiating with them. And at the behest of Donald Trump, these sycophants and the loyalists are going to move forward, and they are going to agree to do what they know that is improper or wrong. Now, as I said last week, they are using the term capitulate, meaning to comply. Well, they're not complying out of force. Many of these people who know better are agreeing to do this in collaboration. I believe that there are fewer capitulators than there are people who are actually in agreement with what is going on, because they want to turn the clock back. And this is what 39% of Hispanic men said is better. 53% of white women said this is better. More than 80% of white men said that this, what we have, is better than what we had. Now, I get it. People were saying, well, they don't see what was done. And that's because, unfortunately, people don't want to read, and they certainly don't want to watch programs that's going to give them more factual information as they would to go to watch something that is going to be much more sensational. You've heard me go through a number of times, and I'm going to go through those, of the transformational legislation that was passed under the Biden-Harris administration that for decades to come would have been transformational to many Black lives and families and communities. Much of it is being rolled back, with the exception of some things. A whole lot of what would have benefited Black businesses and opportunities for Blacks in this country under the Biden-Harris administration, that would have been continued and certainly would have been in place and would have gone into force, because governmental policies are about the future. They're not about happening right now. You're not going to see the brunt, whether it be good or bad, that happens right now, because it is about the future. It takes 4 or 5 years for it really to catch up into Tanksy. Same way with the Affordable Care Act. That's why they worked so hard, 63 times, to try to undo the Affordable Care Act. Because the longer the Affordable Care Act was enforced and in place, the more popular it became, because people started to benefit that. Some 70,000 people who never had healthcare insurance and could not afford it, because of the exchanges and because of the subsidies, were able to afford healthcare. This legislation that was just passed in this big bloated bill is going to reverse the course of that for millions of people. Now, they're estimating it to be anywhere between 12 and 15 million. It could be more than that, but it will be catastrophic for working class people and for poor people. That will be the case. Medicare, Medicaid is going to be impacted. They're trying to privatize the one agency since its inception, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt put Social Security in place. It is the one agency of our government that has been solvent. Why? Because it is paid for by employers and employees. It is not even a part of the federal budget. It's not by law even allowed to be a part of the federal budget. But they will tell you that it's going to be insolvent, that it is going to be bankrupt. No, it's not. That is a scare tactic so that they can take control of it and privatize it. So, but that's what we have in place. That's what we have in place. So therefore, it's important and prudent that you get information. You be informed about the information. I'm not sure where our guest is, Patrick Woodtor. I'm not sure why they have not tuned in, but hopefully they will come on with us. But I'm going to move forward, because I want to, and if they come on, I want you to take a look at this story about the shooting of this 68-year-old Navy veteran that took place on July 31st.
A disabled veteran shot on Seattle's waterfront in broad daylight, and he lived. He was released from the hospital just a few days ago, and tonight he spoke exclusively with our Samantha Lomi-Bao. She joins us live now. Samantha, you met him at his house tonight. First thing, how is he?
Well, he was just released from the hospital on Sunday, but he says he is just happy and lucky to be alive. He says he's always loved playing at this waterfront, but never thought it's a place where he'd almost lose his life.
More shock, I think, than anything else. I got hit really hard right in the chest, right here, real close.
Harold Powell tells me he's grateful to live another day after this happened about 2 weeks ago on Seattle's waterfront. Cairo 7 got this video on Tuesday where prosecutors say the suspect, 32-year-old Gregory Tim, fired a gun at Powell's chest.
Right here's the bullet hole.
Powell thought that was the end for him.
I just went to, I'm going to die, so let me call my family. The heck with everything else. That's just all I thought. I didn't worry about nothing else.
Powell, a Navy veteran who is also disabled, says it happened while he was busking on the waterfront like he has been for the past 30 years. He says the suspect walked up to him and accused him of stolen valor. So Powell offered to show him his military ID. But before he could get to it, he said it was too late.
I practiced being in bad situations all my life. Especially being on a submarine, you just got to be ready not to, if you have to face that moment, you got to practice.
Tim was arrested, but Powell says he hasn't given him much thought since then.
I refuse to complain, and I'm not going to let this guy, nothing about this guy live in my mind for rent free.
He says he's focused on himself and his family.
Moving around slower and move around faster, you know. I'm just blessed, man. I can still do my thing with my family. I'm blessed.
Powell was truly in good spirits the entire time that we were talking to them. He's even visited the waterfront twice since he's been released from the hospital, once Sunday, once today. As for when he'll be back here playing music, he says that's yet to be determined. He's focused on healing. So if you'd like to help with his recovery, you can find the link to their GoFundMe on our website, KAIRO7.com. Live in Seattle, Samantha Meebow, KAIRO 7.
Here's the video of this. When I saw this story, it was shocking to me, and as it should be shocking to many of you. Now, I know that, again, people will say, well, you know, this isn't not anything new. We should not adjust to abnormalities as normal. We should be outraged and shocked anytime that we see it, and we should be standing up against it no matter where it takes place. Whether it's here in Chicago, whether it's there in Seattle, whether it's in Detroit, wherever it is that happens, we should be outraged about it, and certainly should be talking about it. Now, this actually was sent to me that, and I had not heard about this. This took place on July 31st. Today is October the 18th. I'm sorry, August the 18th. I had not heard about it and didn't see it in the news. But this is the video. It's going to be hard to take, but you're going to see this evil unfold right in the middle of what looked to be a pier where lots of people were sitting right outside of a Starbucks, enjoying the day, the weather, their family, or just being outside.
All right, everybody. Show me your ID. Pull a fucking gun on me. Show me your ID. Pull a fucking gun on me. Pull a fucking gun on me.
Try to kill it all away, but I remember everything.
All right, everybody. I apologize. Hold on.
I become my sweetest friend.
Run.
Everyone I know goes away in the end.
Pretty startling to see that take place. and certainly we thank God that that he is okay, and he is going to recover. And of course, you can go and you can Google it if you want to support and to to support that. And apparently, they're having a hard time getting on. So I'm going to try to um, not sure why they're having a hard time with the link. Um, but anyway, Patrick they're having a difficult time to get on, but wanted him to come on to talk about this. And so we're going to have to do it at a different time. Want to have him to really talk to us about the African festival that's coming up on Labor Day weekend. So it's going to be from um, yeah, we'll try to see if we can't arrange to get them back on next week. All right. Um, so, all right. Well, there's some other things that are happening in the news. So we talked about Project 2025, right? And you know that I have been saying that, and certainly we launched 10 by 10 to Win, which is a platform, the Political Action Committee, to build our own independent Black voting bloc right here in Chicago, Cook County, in the state of Illinois, where we have more than 660,000 registered Black voters in Chicago. We have more than 700,000 in the suburban communities of Chicago in Cook County, which is a tremendous resource that we can actually institutionalize our very own Black voting bloc so that we could have much more influence on determining what we want delivered for our communities, to enrich our communities, to make sure that our communities' health and wealth is progressing in our communities. Now, for people who may think that there are some people who think that it's Pollyannish. Well, I happen to be a person who believes in our people. As Black people, we do not have the right to sit down or to give up on our people. In every generation, our people have overcome serious, significant challenges and odds. And if we and our foreparents, our grandparents and great-great-grandparents overcame slavery, overcame Jim Crow, and racism and bigotry to where we are today through the civil rights movement, to where we are today. And these opportunities are sitting right here, right for us. All of that work, all of that commitment, and all of that sacrifice that they made to afford for us to be in the positions now that we are in, we don't have the right to sit and say what we cannot do, or that somebody is not going to let us do it. We have before us right today, if only we were to organize ourselves together, it's right before us that we can organize and institutionalize our own league, union of Black voters that we can slate, select, and elect, meaning that we will have the impact over local, county, citywide, statewide elections. What does that mean? It means that even before we got to an election, if we were to organize ourselves in that fashion, that we would be able to dictate to current administrations, including that of the mayor's office, including that of the Cook County Board president, where Brandon Johnson is the mayor of the city of Chicago, and Tony Pratt-Winkle is the president of the Cook County Board, and J.B. Pritzker is the governor of the state of Illinois. We wouldn't even have to wait to an election. And not to mention the state representatives, state senators, the United States Congress people, the alder people, the trustees, where we live. That is what real power is. Real power is being able to take control of your voting power. Full control of your voting power means that we have full control of it. And by having full control of it, we are determining who the candidates are, not some political party. We are largely Democrats. I'm a Democrat, but the Democratic Party should not be selecting a candidate or candidates and then telling me as a voter, these are the candidates that you get to choose from, but never had a conversation with me to see if I wanted either one of those candidates to choose from. That's what we have available to us if we would just organize ourselves to do it. That's what we have available to us. We have it available to us today. This is not something that we cannot do. It's not even that complicated. God has empowered for us and has brought us through a whole lot. Many of us, everybody can attest that from where you are today, from where you came from, you know that the road wasn't easy, but you made it through, even when you didn't see how you were going to get through and you were going to get over it. But you did. So we have got to adjust and we've got to organize ourselves in a fashion that we have never been organized. That is, if we want to have power. If we just want to go along like we've been going along, and having the kinds of individual success that many of us are experiencing, if that is okay, then I guess we won't do that. We won't organize ourselves together. But I contend that there are thousands of other people who think like I think, who are like-minded like me, and like-minded like those of you who agree that we can organize ourselves together and we can support and demand for better schools. We can demand for a fair real estate property tax system. We can demand that they stop shifting the burdens of tax properties or wealthy property owner taxes from downtown onto homeowners on the south side and the south suburbs, the west side and the west suburbs. We can make those demands and we can stop that sort of thing. For example, you're paying about, on average, 20% more in real estate taxes, subsidizing the taxes of very wealthy property owners downtown, where the Board of Review has allowed them to appeal more than $4.5 billion shifted onto homeowners. So you and I are paying for a wealthy person's taxes on their property while they get to enjoy the wealth of that property. We're subsidizing it. We can stop that. We can force for the wealthy to pay their fair share. We can do like they did in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, they have a wealth tax in Massachusetts where they tax 4% of anyone who has over $1 billion in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, they've been able to generate more than $2.5 billion in tax revenues from wealthy people who have over $1 billion. When you have the power, we can do that. Nobody is against people who are wealthy, but 2/3 of the American public, 2/3 of the American public, which means about 2/3 of the people right here where we are in this region, are living paycheck to paycheck. While we have multi-billionaires that don't pay their fair share. We have trade here in Chicago where they pay nothing on trade, where the mayor and certainly I and others have certainly proposed, and they tried to propose it, and all they have to do is just a matter of one sentence in the legislature, one sentence, changing the language of one sentence in the legislature to impose a financial transaction tax that will generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that comes directly from the Board of Trade. That hundreds of millions of dollars could go into helping to get dilapidated homes and properties in our communities, not taking properties from people, but helping people who are owners of those properties, but they don't have the money to fix those properties and to get those properties back up where they could be provided for affordable housing for somebody, that they could have a good rental property to provide good affordable housing, improving the makeup of the community. Or we have property owners that have multi-unit buildings that they don't have the resources to renovate the property, and they're just barely hanging on to the properties, keeping the taxes paid, but they don't have the wherewithal to fix those properties. We could generate a fund where the city, the county, and the state can support providing funds with a private-public partnership. So they provide funds and they provide the resources for these properties to be redeveloped, to create housing, to get rid of all of these abandoned buildings, and not necessarily abandoned buildings, but these dilapidated buildings in our communities, and get them back up. We've got enough of properties around the south and west side of Chicago that we could have those properties renovated to create housing transitional housing, affordable housing, affordable rents, beautiful properties that you could help the owners by providing them with either low interest loans or grants that they have to maintain these properties for at least 15 years. And the grant will become a forgivable grant. They have a management company in place to make sure that the owner has the type of support to manage the properties, to keep the properties up, so that you have a good preventative maintenance program in place to keep these properties up and strong. That is one way that we can address housing without having to rely on, putting up a few new buildings, which is great, but we have thousands of homes and properties that are in disrepair in our communities. The financial transaction tax could fund that very initiative to get bonds that we can get the billions of dollars that we need to go through our communities, get rid of lead pipes, and renovating these buildings that are in disrepair in our communities. Look, I am a private lender. I have somewhere between $20 and $30 million in private funds on the streets. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of money for one person, but that is nothing compared to what our government can do and what our government is supposed to do, because that is what government is about. Government is about helping those people who need help the most. That's what government is about. Government is not about being the generator for making people rich or for rich people. That's not what government is about. Government has the duty and the responsibility to help those who need help the most. So now those are just a few things that we all agree on. We agree that we need to do something about the overproliferation of gun trafficking into our communities. We can do something about that. We can put pressure on our federal government, our local governments to do something about addressing how these guns are being trafficked into our communities. We can do something about providing the kinds of assistance that people need in the mental health area. We can do something about providing sources or resources to young men and women that have erred in making some bad decisions and getting them reacclimated into the society. I have a program called the Community Project Restoration Program, where you have young men and women who have had some type of an offense, and we get them assessed to see what their skills, abilities are, or what their interests are, and we partner them with companies. And what we do is we pay the company a $50,000, and we pay the candidate $50,000 for 3 years to go through what is called an apprenticeship with whatever that company is. And hopefully at the end of that 3 years, that person will become either an employee, that company will hire that person full time, or that person will have a skill and then we will be able to get them placed somewhere else so that they could have a career. Those are the kinds of aggressive types of investing in people as opposed to investing on people. That's real investment in people who need the help the most. Not these people who are rallying for grants. We have all these non-for-profits, and I'm not saying that all of them, but we have some non-for-profits that they get these grant monies, and they get a bunch of grant money, and most of that grant money goes to support their management. And they do just enough with the resources that the resources don't get to the people that really need the help the most. I'm talking about that we can do things to get the resources to the people who need the help the most. We can do that. But we have got to organize in order to have that kind of strength. Those are the kinds of aggressive things that I am talking about doing. Helping people who need the help the most. I don't need the help. Many of you don't need the help, but there are thousands of our young brothers and sisters who need the help. And there is millions and millions of dollars that are being granted out to non-for-profit organizations in our communities, Black organizations in our communities, and very little of those resources are getting to the people who need the help the most. Organizing our own independent PAC, we collectively can make those things happen and make sure that those resources and those programs get to the people who need the help the most. We can fix the problems, but the first thing that we have to do is fix ourselves, and we have to abandon the way that we have engaged the process by having somebody else to dictate to us who is going to be our representative. And then when that person goes into representative office, we get represented less. That is where you and I need to be. Now, if you want the incremental progress, if you want to call it progress, that you see happening now, keep doing what we're doing. If you want to see a real transformation of our communities at large, and I'm talking about real transformation that you can measure, that you can see, that we can actually see happening within 2 years, 4 years, within 10 years, we could see communities transformed on the south and west side of Chicago, wherever it is that we live. And guess what happens? That's not taking away from anybody, but that's called redistribution. But guess what it does? You distribute wealth and health and help to the south and west sides of Chicago in its most vulnerable communities. You know what it does? It elevates every other community. No community will suffer by ensuring that every Black community that is challenged or suffering is elevated. We can improve our business corridors. We can attract industries to come and bring their companies to our cities to hire people from our communities. And by hiring people from our communities, they get the incentives, the tax incentives, and hiring thousands of people from our communities that are earning $90,000, $100,000, $120,000 a year, which puts them in a position to be able to buy a home, puts them in positions to support more Black businesses because people can open up more Black businesses in our business corridors that we have on the south and west side of Chicago that were very strong at one time. These are the kind of initiatives and policies that we can put into place if we were to change how we engage in the system. That's what we have to do. If we don't do that, if we find all kinds of excuses and roadblocks not to do it, then we just keep doing and getting what we're getting and shut up complaining about it. If you don't want to do something differently and do something about it that is available for us to change it, nobody can stop us but us. The kinds of stuff that we see happening in Project 2025. Project 2025 is made up of over 100 so-called organizations. But you know what they have behind them? They have the maggots, or the MAGAs, or whatever they call themselves, that the administration and Russell Vought, who heads this up. You all don't know who Russell Vought is, but I'm gonna play a couple of clips. I'm gonna get to it so that you know exactly who this person is. All right, and how Project 2025. Russell Vought is now the head of the economic bureau for the Office of Management and Budget for the Trump administration. He is the head of that. He was the head of that in the Trump first term, and he's the head of it now. But he is the main author of Project 2025. And all these other groups contributed to it. And this is what they have been able to get in place. Here is Congressman Mark Pocan, who is questioning Russell Vought about Project 2025. So I want you to listen to this, and then we're going to go back and we're going to look at some clips of Russell Vought, who was in an undercover investigation by two reporters who he thought he was talking to, two wealthy Republican donors. But I want you to watch this first, and then we're going to go back and we're going to watch just how they plan to do it.
Project 2025. You're one of the authors. You're on the advisory board. You work for Heritage. You're basically January, February, and March in a Project 2025 calendar, right? But you were asked this weekend about it, and you said, no, the administration isn't following Project 2025. So I'll go through lightning rounds since I only have 2 minutes. Just tell me, coincidence or not. In the Project 25, abolishing Department of Education, you guys are doing that. Is that a coincidence?
The president's view.
Coincidence or not?
The president's
coincidence or not? That's all you got to ask.
president's agenda
Okay,
is
I'll go
being
through the
followed.
rest. Any diversity, equity, and inclusion?
The president's agenda is being
Shifting
followed.
FEMA costs to the states?
The
Targeting
president designs
PBS
his
and the
agenda.
National Public Radio?
President
Freezing
designs.
federal assistance? Restricting gender-affirming care? Revoking security clearances? Stripping civil servants of employment protections, reinstating service members who refuse COVID-19 vaccines, banning transgender people from the military, a hiring freeze, withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sending active duty troops to the southern border, limiting refugee admissions, rescinding temporary protected status designations, capping indirect costs for university-based research, requiring disclosures of foreign gifts to universities, apparently not planes to presidents, asserting the president's power to remove federal officials, and targeting NOAA. Were those all just coincidences that they happened to be in Project 25 and they were just in the back pocket of the president since November?
The president has never been more of a promises made, promises kept president than we've ever had in history.
Okay, now you heard the whole list of those things that they've already put into place. Now I am going to go through, and I hope that I can get through all of these, but these are some clips of an undercover investigative reporting that two reporters did with Russell Vought. This was, you know, in the campaign and about Project 2025 and about Donald Trump and what his involvement in Project 2025. Remember, Donald Trump said he didn't know anything about it, and some of the things he said was radical. You just heard some of the things repeated by Congressman Pocan of what actually is happening now with Project 2025. We see this happening. Here are some of what we're gonna let's see here. I think this is okay. This is the fifth. This is what they call the fifth year of the Trump administration. Russell Vought.
This year has been predominantly now getting ready for a year 5 of a Trump administration. We've got about 350 different documents that are regulations and things of that nature.
Okay, now here is where he talks with them about Trump saying that he is distancing himself from Project 2025, which is the campaign. This is their strategy, and it worked because they're there. Russell Vought.
Notwithstanding, I expect you to hear 10 more times from the rally, the president, distancing himself from the left's boogeyman of Project 2025.
Yeah. And you're not worried about that?
I'm not worried about it. And so I see what he's doing is just very, very conscious, distancing himself from a brand. He's very supportive of what we do, and know that we have all manner of things that we do that's, even unrelated to Project 2025.
Sure.
And this is their stance on women's rights to choose in about abortion.
He talks about rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I don't actually believe in those exceptions. I want to get to abolition, but we got to win elections. And so I want to get as far as we possibly can.
So he says that even if a woman is raped, sexual assault, or if there is incest, that he doesn't believe in those exceptions at all. So a woman shouldn't have the right to terminate a pregnancy if she is raped or sexually assaulted. This is the guy who is in charge of the Office of Management and Budget as we sit here right now. So he says that we should be, then they want to invoke. Remember, there's supposed to be this separation of church and state. Well, this is what Project 2025 wants to invoke.
So I want to make sure that we can say we're a Christian nation. And my viewpoint is mostly that I would probably be Christian nationism. That's pretty close to Christian nationalism. If we're going to have legal immigration, can we get people that actually believe in Christianity? Is that something? Or do we have to have, are we not allowed to ask questions about Sharia law?
And of course, Donald Trump blessing their organization.
He's been at our organization. He's raised money for our organization. He's blessed.
Wait a minute. Did he say that Donald Trump has raised money for the organization and Donald Trump told us that he didn't know anything about it?
He's been at our organization. He's raised money for our organization. He's blessed.
Okay. So now, and of course, this is what their idea about their ideal world of deportation.
In an ideal world, I think we could save the country in a sense of you know, the largest deportation in history,
and even pornography.
We'd have a national ban on pornography if we could, right?
Now, keep in mind that this was an interview. These were two reporters that Roosevelt thought that they were two very wealthy Republican donors. So he is laying it out to them what Project 2025 is and what Project 2025 will do. This is their stand on George Floyd.
George Floyd obviously was not about race. It was about destabilizing the Trump administration. Right. It's the left's belief that structures in society are the problem. Pulling society down for purposes of revolution is exactly what they want. And what you're seeing at college campuses is a part of that as well. The president has, you know, the ability both along the border and elsewhere to maintain law and order with the military.
And Roosevelt's plans?
80% of my time is working on the plans of what's necessary to take control of these bureaucracies. I want to be the person that crushes the deep state. I think there's a lot of different ways to do that. It is defunding it, it's impoundment, the ability to not spend money, it's getting rid of their independence.
And so he is going to use that to get rid of the deep state. And then here he's talking about bringing in a shadow office. Now, this is all prior to the election, which I played to you what they've already done with parts of Project 2025.
We are trying to create a shadow Office of Management and Budget, a shadow National Security Council, and a shadow Office of Legal Counsel. These are the main organs in government that you need outside to create the battle plan.
And you're not going to publish those?
No.
They go straight to...
Yeah, they're very, very close hold.
And the final...
This year has been predominantly now getting ready for a year 5 of a Trump administration. We've got about 350 different documents that are regulations and things of that nature.
350. That means the 350 executive orders that they are putting in to place, bypassing legislation. And they have already signed far in excess of 350 executive orders. That was Russell Vought talking about Project 2025, and Project 2025 is in full force, right? In full force. Now, I want you to please demonstrate to me why it is so difficult for us to conceive organizing ourselves together. And please don't poison your mind with this zero-sum type approach. The zero-sum approach, you get nothing done. You get very little done. And you still have the people that you're not happy with doing what they are doing. Black legislators, as well as white, as well as Hispanic, all pushing black folk to the back. We have elected more than 193 black people to political public office from the 1980s to now here in Illinois, more than any other state in the union. We've done that here. I won't go through all of them, but some that we have. 30% in the General Assembly, 40% City Council. 30% the Cook County Board, and then a whole host of commissioners and mayors, 17 mayors out in the southern suburbs. My point to you, let's get our act together. Text 10X10 to the number 855-909-1385. Go to the website, 10by10towin.org. 10X10, TOWIN.org. Get into the text alert. Let me see a bunch of people get into the text alert to be ready for this Thursday's meeting. Let us start our own Project 2026 coming up for 26. That's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank you all for tuning into the program right here on intellectualradio.com. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Good night.